Uh, Hello, everybody. Today, my topic for discussion will be cerebral metastasis and their imaging features. Uh, okay, background, incidence, sex, age, tumor origin, pathophysiology, dissemination, CT/MR imaging strategies, and key factors for differential diagnosis of single and multiple metastasis will be spoken about. Incidence. Most common intracranial neoplasm in adults, and it is about 40 to 50% of the tumors. It comprises 40 to 50%. Most common manifestation site of primary somatic cancers in over 11 to 35% of times. As a latent period between diagnostics of primary tumor and brain metastasis. Lung cancer, usually it takes 6 to 9 months. Melanoma, breast, colorectal cancer, these take over 2 to 3 years. Incidence, primary localization detected in over 45% times. Multiple METs, usually seen in over 50 to 85% times. And this is usually from melanoma, lung, and breast cancer. Single METs, renal cells, and colon cancer cells are also seen. Sex and age. Usually it corresponds to the sex and age of the primary tumor. In males, it's usually 35 to 70 years for lung cancer. In females, 30 to 65 years. Breast cancer. Young adults, osteogenic Ewing sarcomas, and germ cell tumors. In children, it is less frequent. It is around 6%. Tumor of origin. Any systemic cancer can metastasize to the brain. Most commonly, in its descending order, the decreasing order, it will be the lung, breast, melanoma, colorectal cancer, and urogenital carcinoma. Patient or metastatic pulmonary cancer in 90% of patients will be brain metastasis. Okay, speaking about the biology and pathophysiology, what are the theories of dissemination? Soil seed theory, Paget in 1889, hematogenous spread by Ewing in 1928. So these are two different things. Soil seed or organ specific metastasis formation was spoken about in 1889. Cancer is like a plant seedling in all directions, but the seeds can only live if they fall on congenital soil. Soil is the brain, seeds is the mets, and genetics. Specific receptors mediate attachment of circulating tumor cells into different brain parts. So, what are the examples? Colorectal cancer, urogenital cancer, and posterior fossa tumors. Theory of hematogenous spread, says by Ewing in 1928. So here it's greater tumor emboli, develop or reach lungs, infiltrate pulmonary capillaries, circulate in bloodstream, reach left heart side, spread with the arterial blood flow into the body, and embolize to organs including the brain. Hematogenous dissemination. Here, if deposition of metastasis that occurs at points of turbulent flow, where vessels caliber changes or is at arterial endpoints. Arterial endpoints is usually at the cortical and medullary junction or the gray-white matter junction. There's something called the hemispheric mets in the white-gray matter junction and in the watershed areas. What are the watershed areas? These are areas where the arterial supply is not well defined by the arterial zones. It is in between these two. So what are the watershed areas? There is the anterior watershed, there is the posterior watershed, which is a part of the outer watershed. There's an internal watershed. Internal watershed is mainly found by the lenticostriates and the internal cerebrals. Heterogeneous dissemination. Displacement of METs depends on passive tumor cell supply via blood circulation. Here, the METs arise proportionally to the weight of brain structures and its perfusion. It can be hemispheric in 80 to 85%, which is usually seen predominantly in the territory of the middle cerebral artery. Why we call it the middle cerebral artery? Because it makes up most of the brain's circulation, supplying most of the frontal parietal lobes and also some inferior aspects. Cerebellum 10 to 15% and the brainstem. Okay. Speaking about the clinical aspect of the clinical presentation, what are the onset of the symptom? It can be subacute, gradual, acute. Okay. And it's 50, 30, and 20% respectively. Typical clinical symptoms are cognitive and personality changes. Then we have headaches, weakness, focal seizure, instability, vision impairment, nausea, and vomiting. So, cognitive and personality changes cannot be very well identified in its early stages. So, it's not very easy to clinically suspect brain metastasis unless you know that there is a brain tumor. Next, headache. Headache is also very vague. Things like headache, weakness, instability, vision impairment. To get into a diagnosis of brain metastasis, the main thing is the imaging workup or the investigative workup, or to find the primary. Clinical and diagnostic pitfalls. Hemorrhage in metastasis resemble acute stroke. So, acute stroke, that is hemorrhagic venous infarcts or venous this thing, will resemble these hemorrhagic metastasis. It will show these GRE blooming and increased density on CT images, misleading the diagnosis. Then we have bilateral metastasis, which doesn't displace the midline. So clinician will get confused. So the patient might be asymptomatic, mimic diffuse cerebral disease, or due to tonsillar herniation, mimic acute vertebro-basilar infarction. So speaking of a clinical scenario now, we'll speak of a 49-year-old man with acute symptoms mimicking vertebro-basilar stroke. Vertebro-basilar, when we say this, what are we speaking about? Dizziness, instability, headache, nausea. Instability, because what does the cerebellum do? What are the infrastentorial structures for? Okay, so these are the symptoms we are speaking about: dizziness, instability, headache, and nausea. And importantly, what we have to look for is there is no history of cancer. Okay, so here, what are we visualizing on the above shown images? On FLAIR, what are we seeing? We are seeing lesions which are heterogeneous, central hypo, peripheral hyper. Diffusion, it shows diffusion restriction, and contrast enhancement peripherally is seen. So that means there is central area of necrosis. And we are seeing the lesions in the uppermost region, that is in the area of the subcortical region, the cortical region, the periventricular areas, and infradentorial, that is the cerebellum, all these areas. So, what can be the diagnosis when we find multiple such lesions? So, these were metastasis, small round cell lung cancer was its primary. So, we need to look at each area sequentially and look for the metastasis. So the biggest of the lesions should be very well described, and those could be what are causing the clinical symptoms in the patient. So in this patient, we can see it is more extensive in the infratentorial aspect of the brain. Therapeutic consideration depends on number of deposits, location of the metastasis, sensitivity of primary tumor to radiation and chemotherapy, dissemination of systemic malignancy. Okay. Now, therapeutic options and prognosis. What are the therapeutic options that are available to us? Surgical resection. Okay. Surgical resection can be done as long as we have a smaller number of metastases, maybe one or two or three, and it is in a more accessible location. And even in this, the median survival time is usually 18 to 24 months. That is more or less 2 years. Then we have stereotactic gamma knife surgery, surgically non-removable solitary mets. Treatment alternative in 2 to 6 metastasis. Whole brain radiotherapy. Median lifetime prolongation is not more than 3 to 6 months. This is done when you cannot go ahead with surgical resection or gamma knife surgery. There are multiple metastases, like we just saw in the previous case, where multiple infratentorial, paraventricular, cortical metastases were seen in both frontal, parietal, and occipital lobes. So, depending upon your report, the number you give, how active the lesions are, how extensive they are, what are its features on diffusion, contrast enhancement, and even MRS. It, usually metastasis show this NAA peak. All these together make it very important for surgeons or oncologists to plan the therapeutic option. Investigative methods and algorithms. CT and non-enhanced CT. Isodens or hypodens. Edematous areas are not strictly corresponding to the territories of the cerebral arteries. Why are we saying this? Because obviously, why will it correspond to the cerebral arteries? It will be around the areas of where the metastasis is. And the edema is not cytotoxic, it is vasogenic form of edema. So you will see these finger kind of projections involving both the white matter and the gray matter, and it is going petally. So hypertensity, high nuclear cytoplasmic ratios will be seen, small round cell lung cancers, intratumoral hemorrhages, where we see. So these are called hemorrhagic tumors, and we can see these differential diagnosis in Chapman DDs. So there you will have hemorrhagic metastasis, calcific, sclerotic, all these, and each one is a very important question, and everything needs to be read. Intratumoral hemorrhage, we have melanoma, choriocarcinoma, renal cell, lung, thyroid carcinoma. So the most important here will be melanoma and choriocarcinoma. Calcific, usually the lung and the breast carcinoma. Remember, lung and breast carcinoma, as it is of the same level. Contrast enhanced CT, what can we expect? There is intense, solid, or ring enhancement. What is the dose of iodine that we're going to give to the patient? It is usually 30 to 40 gram iodine. This visualization of additional metastasis that can be done when we give double the dose, that is 80 grams. So it is basically directly proportional to the amount of iodine that we're giving, and performing scans with 1 to 3 hours delay. So that is to see if the tumor is holding back any contrast. Then we have MRI versus CCT. Additional tumor foci on MRI is usually seen in almost 20% cases. So this was a definite study done in one of the studies done in hands that had conclusive evidence that MRI was significantly more sensitive to detection of tumors or metastasis. So this was a female 70-year-old known lung adenocarcinoma. 4 months after combined treatment, decreased mental status, headache, weakness, vision impairment was seen. So what do we see in this patient? We see that behind the temporal horn of the lateral ventricles on the right side, we are seeing a hyperdense lesion. And same thing here on T1 images also, we are seeing very similar hyperintense, well marginated, kind of irregular, not very well circumscribed or oval lesions. So what is in the pretext of lung adenocarcinoma, the first thing that we should be thinking about is carcinoma. We cannot see any significant midline shift or any other lesion, at least in this level. So MRI protocol, basics, flare, flare images play a very important role. So what is flare? It is fluid inversion recovery sequence, and T2 images are also as important as flare, and flare can better delineate because you can see the edema better in flare images. Echoplanar diffusion weighted imaging, D value is 1100 seconds per mm square with ADC. Pre-contrast sequence T1, spin echo, then contrast enhanced set 1 weighted images, IV, we have to give 0.1 millimole per kg. This is, we'll take another case again. This is a female 52-year-old who has headache, right-sided leg paralysis. Morphological diagnosis, what was there was squamous cell lung cancer metastasis. So what do we see here? We see that on flare, we are seeing some regions of edema. We are seeing a lesion in the region of the left centrum semiovale. Okay, and none of this lesion is going to suppress because it is not fluid. Then on diffusion weighted imaging, we can see that the lesion in the right posterior aspect of the right parietal lobe of the occiput, behind the right ventricle, we are seeing this lesion which shows some amount of diffusion restriction. Okay, so it is very important. That could be the solid lesion that is present. And non-enhanced CT, non-enhanced T1 image, we are able to see again a slightly hyperintense lesion in the right parietal lobe, just behind the right ventricle, and a large cystic lesion, probably with kind of a mural nodule appearance in the left centrum semiovale, and hyperintense rim. Then we have a 44-year-old female with mental retardation, dizziness, seizures, and known case of skin melanoma. See, here we have a very typical presentation where we have in the occipital lobe on flare image, we are seeing a hyperintensity. And this same lesion is showing restriction on diffusion. So it becomes very significant, very important. Non-enhanced CT, again, we can see non-enhanced T1 weighted, we can again see some amount of hyperintensity, but more or less iso-intense. Then we are seeing this gross, as we move above, just 2 levels, 3 levels above, we are seeing in the centrum semiovale, there is an iso-intense lesion on T1, which is showing restriction and causing disproportionate amounts of vasogenic edema. Observe that finger-like projections. And on contrast, it is showing enhancement, this central region, and we also can see this very well seen edema around it, which is vasogenic, finger-like. So in the pretext of melanoma, this can be considered metastasis. Okay, and metastasis, what in melanoma, what do we see? The hemorrhagic kind of metastasis. Okay, so MRI protocols. What are the additional alternative sequences that can be seen? FSCT2, GRET2. Then we have CT1, contrast enhanced T1 with 0.1 millimole per kg gadolinium. And we have MRA 3D top IB millimole per kg and 3D fast field liquid T1, 3D proton MRs. We'll take another case, a 71-year-old with headache, cognitive speech disturbances, 8 years after combined therapy due to breast. cancer, clinical diagnosis was ischemic stroke. So on CCT, what do we see? We do not see anything basically. On non-enhanced T1 and contrast-enhanced T1, we see mild hyperintensities in the left temporal lobe. And the same thing we are able to see in the T1 MT sequences, just on the left side, basically the temporal lobe only. So what did we do? We did contrast study on CECT. We are able to visualize extensive enhancement on contrast, which is seen on T. On FLAIR, we can see this metastasis, and then we have diffusion weighted imaging where we can see that the splenium of the corpus callosum is involved, parietal lobe is involved. The diffusion restriction is seen very evidently. Then on non-enhanced T1, again, it is iso-intense to mildly hypo-intense and not very well seen. Then on contrast and MT image, again, we can see some mild uptick. So in such cases, we should be very careful in saying it as normal or anything. You should always make sure you see all the sequences. See, had we seen only the T1 sequences, thought it was normal, it would be such a horrendous thing. So it's very important to look for all sequences like T2, flare, diffusion. And diffusion plays a very important role in cases of metastasis. And also, whenever we suspect metastasis and when we suspect that there is diffusion restriction, we should all make it a habit to do contrast study. Contrast study will show the extension, will show what are the active lesions. And also MT these days are used extensively. So it gives us some additional information. Morphological diagnosis. With this picture, we should give it as carcinomatous encephalitis, not ischemic stroke. Ischemic stroke would have had a very different picture. The history also becomes very important. The onset of symptoms, the patient's this thing. Here, speaking of a 45-year-old with headache, cognitive speech disturbances, flare images. Here we can see that the whole of the left ventricle is compressed. It's almost disappeared. We are not able to see anything. And we are able to see this extensive area of flare hyperintensity on the left side. We can call it in the ventricular plane or in the centrum. Then we are seeing the T1 image where we are seeing some hypodensity with some iso-intense region in the left parietal lobe. Then we are seeing again the T1 sequence, contrast enhanced T1, where we are seeing a lot of contrast can be picked in the parietal lobe. Okay, so on MRA, what did we find? We found that there was this very large metastasis, which was dural based. Morphological diagnosis was breast cancer metastasis. Then it was dural leptomeningeal subependymal parenchymal spread. So we can see that it is involving the left on top venogram. We can see it is involving the left transverse sinus. It is so large, almost very extensively involving the parietal lobe. So differential diagnosis, the solitary foci. What is the most common thing we'll think of? Primary malignant glioma. Then we have abscess. And rarely you can think of inflammatory granulomas, parasites, primary CNS lymphoma. Primary malignant glioma, key facts, usually the location is deep, heterogeneous contrast enhancement, we see necrosis. Contaminated edema, poor demarcation, finger-like tumor infiltration, and edema along tract. So in a male patient, 58-year-old with headache, ataxia, vision impairment, onset 3 weeks before imaging, what are we seeing? On flare, we are seeing this very hyperintense region. Usually, it is involving the posterior aspect of the left this thing, parietal and occipital lobes. The same region on diffusion weighted imaging shows some very this thing. The picture is not very good. We are seeing hypodensity, some areas of mild restriction, and on contrast enhanced T1 sequence, we are able to see these cystic areas with some solid component showing a peripheral rim of hyperintensity. That hyperintensity is the contrast pickup. So peripheral contrast rim enhancement. And this extensive vasogenic edema that we picked up on flare. So what can we infer from this? It is a glioblastoma. So had it gone to the contralateral side, had it breached the midline butterfly glioma. So not many tumors can breach the midline. Glioblastoma multiforme is one of them. Glioblastoma multiforme is the fourth grade tumor, and usually before this we have its predecessors 3, 2, 1. This is the most aggressive form. It will require surgery, radiotherapy, as well as chemotherapy for its management. Cerebral abscess, usually smooth, thin-walled ring, increased SI on diffusion weighted imaging at reduced ADC. MRS shows no choline elevation, elevated amino acids, lactate, and cystic component. So here we are seeing a 56-year-old with headache, ataxia, impaired vision, onset in 2 weeks before imaging. So here we have flare, diffusion weighted imaging, and contrast enhanced T1 imaging. What do we see on flare? Again, a centrally located small lesion on flare with extensive disproportionate amount of edema, vasogenic edema. Diffusion weighted imaging, nowhere are we seeing any significant restricted diffusion, but for the lesion where we are able to see, we should also correlate with this ADC values most of the times. Contrast enhanced CT shows this central area taking up a lot of contrast, so that is the active part of the lesion. So what was this? This is cerebral abscess, stage of late cerebritis or early abscess. So how do we say this is abscess? We should take MRS, make sure that there's no NA peak. Should also, so these also can mimic metastasis. We should be very careful. We should look for a primary also. Sometimes it's not very easy to differentiate a solitary abscess from solitary metastasis. Diagnostic pitfalls in a female 54-year-old with headache, hemiparesis, gradual onset of symptoms in 3 months, C flare, non-enhanced T1 and contrast enhanced T1. What do we see on flare? We see a large, almost iso-intense tumor involving the temporal lobe on the right side with disproportionate amounts of vasogenic edema, which is almost spreading to the parietal and the frontal lobes, which is pushing the midline, compressing the lateral ventricles, causing ankle herniation as well. So this is a very severe, grievous tumor. Then we are seeing a non-enhanced CT, again, a heterogeneous, mostly hypo tumor. And on contrast enhanced, we are able to see it is intensely enhancing with some areas of non-enhancement. So what was the diagnosis? Tuberculoma. Usually tuberculomas don't show these extensive edema, but not, but sometimes we can find this. I very recently came across a case where we had such extensive edema and the patient also had history of pulmonary tuberculosis and he was on anti-tubercular treatment. So we thought it could be tuberculoma. We had confusion, it could be metastasis. Then we did MRS, and MRS typically showed this NAA peak, choline peak, sorry. So when we see a choline peak, low NA, short, bullseye, metastasis. So tuberculoma can sometimes mimic metastasis. Should be very careful while taking a call on what we are giving in our paper. Okay, and echinococcosis. Differential diagnosis of multiple foci, multiple abscesses, pyogenic abscesses, Inflammatory granulomas like TB, sarcoid, demyelinating diseases like MS, ADEM, thromboembolic stroke, autoimmune vasculitis. So these are the things. So here we can see these multiple lesions. This is TBC granulomas, tuberculous granulomas. Then we have this picture in a 22-year-old patient, plain sarcoid. See the typical appearance. It can always be confused with metastasis. So this is all for today, and thank you.